Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. We have a big one today, Dean. Coming up, one of the biggest stories no one is covering right now was published in the New York Times today. It's all about Trump's financial disclosures, how much money he's really worth now, how much money he was really worth before the elections, and why he's so beholden to one particular industry that he is basically too compromised to be the president of the United States. So we'll be revealing all of that as the number one story
Shocking
later
news.
on. I knew you'd be shocked. I wanted you to be shocked.
Yeah,
So there we go.
Hi, Arlene. Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Yeah, shocking news that Trump's net worth depends on some of the skeeviest people in the world and could be as much as $7 to $10 billion. Shocked. I'm shocked that he's self-dealing. Did you see, before we get started, did you see
Yes.
the Trump fragrance launch yesterday? Victory 47 for men and for women?
Order you one for
Oh,
your
yeah.
birthday.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
So I've got a couple on back order right now. It's sold out. So, you know, you're on top of my list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2.5 million he got. I think a lot of these things in the wealth that he has is purely dependent on what he does to the United States of America. We'll get to that story. There's a bunch of stuff to get to. I don't know if we've got a truce in Musk Trump round 2. But it sure seems like it. And Elon again humiliated. It's got to be catching up with him, dude. I don't know who's going to win this war between these two, but every time he gets over his skis, he starts shitting his pants, doesn't he?
Well, he does. Because you know why? Because it's all tied to crypto. And that's why he keeps shitting himself, because, you know, he's ultimately beholden to what this president does and doesn't do.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, that fragrance, you know, it's dedicated to you winning. It's all about winning, just like he has at 45 and 47.
Yeah.
And you know, you were a winner. So that's why I thought it was an ideal gift for you. I'm going to get.
Do you know what I'd prefer? For you to give me the fight for fragrance. That smells a lot like fighting, apparently.
Yeah.
It's from his fake assassination attempt. And yes, I do believe it was a fake assassination attempt. And I
was.
bet you everybody in here is going to go, oh, yeah, so do I. I just haven't been able to say it yet. No, seriously. It's a
really
fake. Yeah. But anyway, I'd prefer the fight fragrance because it apparently smells of rich mahogany and diaper trappings.
Oh,
so there you go. Yeah.
There's no scent of alligator Alcatraz yet. That's still coming. The sweat of sweaty illegal undocumented workers mixed in with alligator poo or something. I don't know. Oh God, that's where we started.
It smells like the corpses of half-eaten migrants in a Florida swamp. That's what this one's called. Fight. Yeah. Anyway, lots to get to. Where do you want to start today?
The number 5 story is Sean Diddy Combs, convicted on prostitution charges. Sean Diddy Combs was convicted on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, but acquitted of the blockbuster racketeering and sex trafficking charges that could have put him away for life. The jury reached its verdict after 3 days of deliberations, finding him guilty under the Mann Act for flying people across state lines for prostitution. Not the most serious of crimes when you consider everything else he was charged with. So it was a split verdict, guilty on prostitution, up to 20 years in jail, but he's not likely to face that much. And prosecutors swung for the offenses and missed the big one. And that's just the reality of it. They couldn't prove the racketeering. They couldn't prove the conspiracy. So what we have is a one-time famous rap artist who basically flew some prostitutes across state lines.
Was there ever a doubt that he would get off? This is kind of scot-free when you consider the racketeering charges and some of the human trafficking charges that he was acquitted of. You know, these are always dangerous things for people like me to weigh in on, because I just assumed the prick was guilty from all the shit that we've seen, like the videos of him beating women, you know, the 10,000 bottles of MDMA laced lube, you know, the hundreds of accounts of him bribing, threatening, you know, threatening to kill, threatening to destroy their lives, the real lawsuits. Like, I think at some point there was like 112 individual lawsuits against the guy. Now, I am no, you know, legal beagle, but when you have that much evidence and physical video of what he was accused of doing existing that we've all seen.
Yeah.
And he has not been allowed out of prison for the past several months because of how egregious the human trafficking and and all the other racketeering charges, how egregious those crimes were, how people were living in fear. Where there's smoke, he's fucking guilty. Like, and for the legal system, the way that it works in the United States, which is completely geared and we're seeing it right now with the Trump regime. We see it all the time. Everything is geared. The table is tilted towards those that have the very most money, the most important people in the entire ecosystem when it comes to any lawsuit. Isn't who's innocent. It's who's got the most money, who's got the most to lose, who's connected to the right people. America, to me, this is a microcosm of what's wrong with the United States of America. America has long been fucking lawless when it comes to dealing with elites. Lawless. How long did Jeffrey Epstein stay out of prison for? Decades. Donald Trump, he's the president of the fucking United States. Matt Gaetz was almost the attorney general. We're talking about some very, 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 very awful people. And the receipts that I've seen of Puff Daddy means he's a very, very, very awful person who probably is guilty of most of the things he was charged with, and he got off with the least retribution that you can get off for what he was charged for, which was just prostitution. It's one of those head shakers again, innocent till proven guilty, who's proven guilty of prostitution. So he's a pimp, right? Well, what do pimps do? All the other shit that he was charged with, for fuck's sakes. So,
but is it racketeering? These racketeering laws were designed to get, the Gambino family, not designed to get the Diddy media mogul family. In reality, he operates like probably every other media mogul around, who's got that kind of money, who likes living the fast life. He does a lot of drugs and women or whatever. He likes that lifestyle. He was living that lifestyle to then retroactively go back there and say, hey, now we think that all of this was racketeering and you were involved in some massive conspiracy when you were just doing your thing, as media moguls might do. I think it was just overreaching in some ways by the prosecutors. I mean, he was found guilty of the prostitution charges. That's a big deal. But if you were going to arrest and charge everyone who enjoyed drug-fueled sex parties in America, you would have very crowded prisons, especially if you charge them with racketeering charges. I mean, it's
a hell of a prison to go to for an afternoon, though, wouldn't it? Hey, welcome to the conjugal prison, all conjugal all the fucking time.
Yeah, it would be an experience being there for sure. But that's the reality. So I mean, I'm not forgiving everything he did. That was terrible. I mean, he is obviously not very good to his girlfriend. He's beat her up. He's violent as anything.
Dude, hundreds of women.
Yeah, there's a lot of assault allegations.
Hundreds of young men.
Yeah.
Like, have come forward and sued him legitimately for doing the things that he just got off scot-free for being accused of doing. So
in this particular case, there was only the few, right? I mean, they wouldn't go into all hundreds. They got into
they went into the most egregious ones, and then I believe witness number 3 just was like, I'm too scared. I mean, you had people showing up that were car bombed by him into silence, like giving testimony, like in the middle of the actual jury trial. So, who knows what happened? Maybe it was, they got to this, 1 or 2 of the jury members. Who knows? Maybe this was just the lesser of two evils. But, the elites win again, the rich win again, the powerful win again, and the victims lose yet again. And there are a lot of victims in the Puff Daddy issue, if you will. A lot of victims. And those are the people who my heart goes out to today.
Now, I'd originally thought that he was going to be like an Epstein. I thought there was some sort of, espionage conspiracy behind him in order to blackmail people, which is really what Epstein was involved in, something much more sinister than what he's outwardly accused of. But that never materialized. We never heard any of that, and that was interesting to me that never showed up. So I do think there's a distinction between the kind of crazy things that Epstein was doing. The real crazy things that Epstein was doing that weren't revealed, in the initial charges, and what Diddy has landed up being charged with. And he's more akin to what Donald Trump should have been charged with for sure than with what Epstein should have been charged with. But
and here's the thing. This is the thing. Let me just posit this. So I know it's a disgusting topic. We're talking about Puff Daddy being largely found not guilty of the most serious crimes, and as it was earlier this morning, verdict came in just guilty of prostitution. That's it. But there are hundreds of pictures of Donald Trump with Epstein, and hundreds of pictures over the years of Donald Trump with Puff Daddy. You know, you know what I mean? I mean, we don't have the Epstein files. That whole cock up. Still, Donald Trump's name apparently in them. Elon Musk blew that up yet again. And then, you go to the Puff Daddy thing and you're like, it's pretty fucking hard evidence here. And, a lot of documented examples of Trump and P. Dids, Huffy, Father Love, or whatever he calls himself, together at these parties. It is a good time to be an associate of Donald Trump over the past 20 years. I have serious questions as to how that was even possible. Because I'll tell you what happened. I don't know if you've read any parts of the actual verdict reading. Is when he was found not guilty of racketeering, human trafficking, the worst parts. He stood up and started clapping after it was announced that he was guilty of prostitution. He was like this. This is a man whose entire abusive, drug-fueled, rapey, racketeering, prostitution life has been on display for the world for 7 months, and he's clapping.
Yeah. No remorse at all. That's a sad
zero.
Sign.
Anyway, the Trump angle interests me. That's pure conspiracy.
Trump is a rapist. We know Trump is a rapist,
and we know that they hung out at the same parties that he was on trial for. So,
and we know that Trump still became the U.S. president after being, essentially found by a judge to be a rapist, and yet there's our sliding justice scale, as you were talking earlier, of what happens to people who are wealthy in America and commit horrible things.
You know what? And it's a microcosm of what America is becoming, which is rules for me and not for rules for thee and not for me, laws for thee and not for me, and those laws for the me's don't exist. They just exist for the American public. And I wrote a piece today that really talked about looking at the double standard, the self-dealing, the lawlessness when it comes to the richest, the most important, the most influential in and around Trump's orbit, the loyalty. This is how empires die. This is if you look at life through a historical lens and empires rising and falling through history, our human history, everyone from the British Empire to the Roman Empire to the Ottoman Empire, they all died the same way. They died like this. They died like this when the people plainly saw that they were the victims, that they were the marks, and that everybody else associated with, whatever kingdom was running the fiefdom at the time got everything and you got nothing. And unfair was a policy. Still is. This is how empires die, and this is just, again, a microcosm of it. I mean, we can get to all the other stuff. We've got lots to get to. 4 more stacks in the FiveStack.
Actually, how empires die, because that is if this is exhibit 1 of how empires die, wait until you get to the number 1 story when you really hear about what Donald Trump is about to. But before we get there, this might be another example of how empires die. This is number 4, a former FBI agent who was charged with encouraging the Capitol mob to kill him when attacking police officers, has been named as an advisor to Donald Trump's Justice Department task force seeking retribution against political enemies. So this is Jared Wise, who is a former FBI supervisor, amongst other things. And he accused the police of being the Gestapo while they were attacking the police at Capitol Hill. He now works for the Weaponization Working Group under Ed Martin, who you remember was going to be the U.S. attorney, but didn't get that job. So now he's heading up the Weaponization of Justice Department, where they basically are going after people who attacked or prosecuted people on the January 6th or other enemies of Donald Trump. So this guy is a convicted criminal who was in jail for committing the most horrendous crimes and encouraging the crowd to kill police officers. Now he's working for the Justice Department. This is the upside-down world that we are in right now in the Trump universe. This is the Department of Justice as it is today.
Yeah, Department of Justice press release on Wise noted that once violence broke out against law enforcement in front of him on January 6th, he, who was there to agitate and get the crowd going and get them moving, like this was a retired FBI agent turned maggot, turned radicalized maggot, started to really push people towards the Capitol building. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And I quote, this is from the the Department of Justice old press release on his arrest. Yeah, fuck him. Yeah, kill him. And then in the direction of the people who were attacking the police, he said, quote, kill him, kill him, kill him. He is now a key senior advisor to Donald Trump and Ed Martin, who are setting up a task force to legitimately attack political opponents and people who have any problem with what happened on January 6th. Suck on that today. Suck on that today.
That's
Is
unbelievable.
the sycophants, and having people around him and his billionaire playboy crew, that's one thing. He's now putting people in his cabinet in advisory roles to bend the law towards and against people who had a problem with the fucking insurrection and the death of American police officers who tried to prevent it.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah, something really has turned in the last week or so where we've seen this president, who is setting up an authoritarian state, and we've seen all the mechanisms he was doing for that authoritarian state. Had all those things are suddenly in place for him, and now we're beginning to see him weaponize them against people. And what we're seeing is this obvious and clear targeting of any of his political opponents. And if you're on his side, and no matter what crime you've committed, no matter who you've killed, no matter what insurrection you may have organized, no matter what you've done, you are now his ally and weapon against his political opponents. And what you do as his ally and weapon is perfectly okay, no matter what it is. And what your enemy does, what his enemies do, or his opponents do, they're at risk of even being arrested and deported, which is what he was threatening the leading candidate in the Democratic Party for the New York mayorship. This is where we're heading now, where the leading guy for the mayor of New York may be ultimately deported and sent to one of these concentration camps, because he's opposing ICE entering New York City. This is where we are in America today, where we've completely lost our moorings in terms of values, in terms of our law, in terms of everything. And we're just going to weaponize every department we've got, having purged it of all the legitimate prosecutors and all the real people who are doing real stuff over there. We're going to use all the power that those institutions have and target our opponents and make sure that our opponents can never get an upper hand on us.
Do you see the dominoes falling into place? Whether it's Alligator Alcatraz meant for migrants, it ain't. It's meant for the people that Mr. Wise and Ed Martin and the Trump task force against political enemies is going to go after too. All of these things matter. The suspension of habeas corpus, the suspension of basic or fundamental human rights, the suspension of any legal representation, the removal of birthright citizenship. Everything points to one thing, and you can look at Alligator Alcatraz and all the other concentration camps that the Trump administration is building around the United States and the ones that they're co-opting around the world in derelict third world countries where these people never come home. This is on. We've talked about empire building and the death of empires. This is the building of the American Reich. That's exactly what this is. And you can see it happening in real time. What did Hitler do when he was let out of jail after spending some time there for trying to take over Germany back in the late 20s? I'll tell you what he did. He got out and the people that went with him, he put them and installed them in places of power, just like Donald Trump is doing now.
Same playbook.
This is the exact same playbook, kids.
Yeah. And it's funny you should mention Alligator Alcatraz. Alligator Alcatraz is what it's called.
Yeah.
Because yesterday, this is the number 3 story, during his visit to the detention center in Florida, Donald Trump floated the idea of deporting U.S. citizens who commit crimes, saying a lot of bad people that have been here for a long time, many of them were born in our country. I think we ought to get them the hell out of here too. So he's gone from saying that these facilities are designed for undocumented or illegal immigrants. First, he said it was for criminals who are illegal immigrants. Then it became just any illegal immigrants. Now he's saying, well, it's also designed for citizens who've committed crimes. which they will also, by the way, try strip their citizenship from them in a new ruling that not a new ruling in a new policy guideline that the Trump administration has issued. They intend to take people's citizenship rights away if they've been committing crimes in America. So this escalation, this broadening of who they're targeting, we've said this is coming for months, and here it is. It's coming. And who's he going to target with his weaponization committee there with Ed Martin and Mr. Wise? Well, he's going to target his opponents. He's going to target the Democrats. He's going to target any mayor or any city official that
sanctuary
tries to oppose
cities,
him.
blue states.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Critics and critics of the president. I mean, I was talking to Olga Lautman yesterday on the Trump tyranny track, and she's like, well, that person is me. I'm a U.S. citizen who's been here for 40-something years, who's a critic of the president of the United States, and I could be targeted for that reason. And she's not probably wrong under these circumstances. So, this is where it gets really frightening when you see the president's judgment around who is a bad person is the qualifier for who gets to keep their citizenship.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that is a direct correlation with the entire Project 2025 master plan, right?
Yeah.
Go back to that all the time. The master document that is running the United States that was built by Stephen Miller and Russell Vought, who are two of the worst fucking human beings on the planet, who want to turn that beautiful country, that shining democratic city on the world hill, into an authoritarian police state. Well, it's on. I mean, the big beautiful bill that passed yesterday still has to get past the House. One of the key provisions in it was to fund ICE to the tune of $140 billion. The fucking Navy doesn't get $140 billion. So, you're talking about taking a little-known, specialized, niche group of people that help manage the border and turning them inside against Americans and then funding it like you're funding the military, but then some.
Yeah.
That is a massive recruitment drive that's coming. There is going to be an enormous effort put into getting as many of you into those camps as humanly fucking possible. And they funded it through the big, beautiful bill. It is the most disgraceful piece of legislation in America's 250-year history that is meant for one purpose and one purpose only, which is to kill as many people that the Trump regime finds undesirable or un-American. We say it all the time. It is about race. It is about ideology. It is about politics. And it will get much more violent before these things get shut down. And here's the other thing. We still don't really even know what's going on in these detainment camps. We don't know. We have no idea.
No oversight either.
And I had a conversation years ago with a relative who, my grandfather landed on the beaches of Normandy, largely at the end of the Second World War. We did not know, the extent of the human rights tragedies and abuses going on in Holocaust camps across Europe. We did not know. And it was a shock to the world. It almost cratered the world with PTSD when we found out what had happened. We're not going to find out what's going on in these concentration camps and these detainment centers until this is over. Mm-hmm. And this is just beginning.
Yeah, I mean, someone just pointed out, and you had a story on this in your Substack yesterday about the 55 Canadians that are being detained. And, we don't really know exactly why or how they're all there and what conditions they're in. We also know that the Congress now needs to give ICE 7 days notice before they even can see any of these detention centers. So to do their oversight duty and visit any of these detention centers, they have to request permission to do so 7 days in advance.
Yeah, and let me just deal with the death part. Yesterday, Tom Homan, the guy from ICE, who, by the way, said he's in hiding, can't live with his wife because of the threats against his life. And he's like, this is unfair. And I'm like, no, those are natural consequences, you dumb shit.
Yeah.
So bottom line is Tom Homan was actually the Cuban national, 75-year-old Cuban national, on top of a 49-year-old Canadian. Mm-hmm. Who was picked up by ICE, Johnny Noviello, something that we haven't really talked about here, who was not given access to his medication. He died in jail. The gentleman, the 75-year-old Cuban, apparently the same thing. Wasn't given proper medical attention, died in jail. There have been 11 deaths. Tom Homan was asked about the Cuban death, and he's like, people die in custody all the time. Next fucking question. And I'm like, my bullshit. God, that is America's reputation now. That is
not true. The reality of it is the death numbers have increased dramatically in the last year since this ICE expansion has continued. They do not have facilities that can hold the number of people that are there. They're 140% over capacity. This is not normal to keep people in conditions like this, which don't have the facilities to keep people. Of course, people are going to die if they can't get to see doctors, can't get any medication for their conditions. Of course, that's going to happen. You're killing them basically by denying them medication. You're killing them by denying them proper housing and proper toilets and proper washroom facilities. You're killing people by putting them in those conditions. Your job is to detain people in a humane way. I mean, that's what we do in America. We don't detain people and then in conditions that are so deadly and disgusting that you're going to premeditate a murder there. This is it's not people just dying in custody. It's their murder that's happening in custody. And what your point is correct. Like, we don't know what happened in Nazi Germany. We're not going to know until it's too late how many people have died at Sikot or in Libya or in Sudan or
in America, at Alligator Alcatraz,
yeah.
in Arizona, and fucking Louisiana, in California. I mean, they're in every fucking state, Zev.
I know, it's just appalling that is the response from the Department of Homeland Security. Speaking of appalling, the big beautiful bill is a number 2 story. So we know yesterday the Senate passed Trump's massive omnibus legislation, 51-50, with J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote, sending it to the House now for what could be a decisive vote, maybe even today. But it looks like it could be taking a little longer. The sweeping bill makes Trump tax cuts permanent while slashing social safety net programs that disproportionately serve communities of color. And this is where people have not been spending a lot of attention. This is a racist bill. This is an apartheid bill. This is a bill that basically gives $3.3 trillion in tax cuts for wealthy white people mostly, while gutting Medicaid and SNAP benefits for more than 40% of black families and 36% of Latino families. In other words, it's basically stealing Medicaid coverage and health coverage from poor black and Latino families and giving tax breaks to rich white people. It's doing the same with SNAP benefits. They'll literally create hunger in communities of color while giving billionaires permanent tax breaks they probably won't even notice. The destruction of healthcare in the Medicaid cuts will devastate those in black and Latino communities, but not even white communities that require the same Medicaid and Medicare. Those will be spared a lot of the cuts. So what we're going to be seeing is this bill is not only horrible and not only destructive, but it's destructive in a racist way. It's basically imposing apartheid-like regime on America.
Yeah. Have you ever seen, someone mentioned it, actually, I was going to mention this earlier, but glad we're at the big, beautiful bill portion. Have you ever seen the series called The Hunger Games, that movie series? You've seen it?
Yeah. It's a good movie.
It's very Hunger Gamesy, isn't it? Where certain communities have to pay tribute and will lose all rights, basic human rights, access to food, access to shelter, water, medical treatment, right? And everybody else gets to live in the city with all the stuff. Everybody else, that Trump deems necessary, this regime deems necessary, this fascist authoritarian cabal of assholes deems necessary, they'll get all your stuff. And then you're going to have to fight each other to the death for milk, toilet paper. You're going to have to start stealing, resorting to crime. And who they don't pick up illegally, who they don't kidnap, who they don't put in these concentration camps, you'll get dealt with in the actual Hunger Games. That's what's in the mind of the architects of Project 2025. As I sit here through the news of cuts in this bill that are absolutely targeting Black, Latino, marginalized communities, blue states, sanctuary cities, anywhere humanity thrives, progressivism is important, and human rights apply to all human beings. So you can legitimately see what the Trump regime is trying to accomplish here, and that's how can we get all their stuff, make them fight to the death, cut a little off the top when it comes to the haves and the have-nots, so we can have a society that runs a little bit better for us. Now, you're talking about the richest people in the world who are turning a blind eye to what this means, this bill, what it means to their neighbors, what it means to people that work for them, with them, what it means to their families, what it means to the most marginalized people in that beautiful country. And that's the sickness that is America. That will be the end of the American dream. And you're watching it happen right now because that American dream isn't just being assassinated by the Trump regime with the big, beautiful bill. It is being murdered at an alarming rate. It is being genocided in favor of the Trump regime dream, in favor of a Christian nationalist dream, in favor of an oligarch led dream, where only the richest, the most powerful, and the most conservative get to the front of the line. That's the make America great again part. It happened here in Canada too, where it's like, we want to give Canadians back. This was Pierre Poilievre, the guy who lost miserably to Mark Carney. We want to give you back your country. That's what this is. We want to give you back this country, but we need to be able to figure out a way to kill as many people who you don't like as possible. And that's exactly what this big, beautiful bill helps them do.
What it also does, that was brilliantly said, is it makes this class of people, these non-white people, your servants, your slaves, because they're so beholden to you for everything, because they don't have any other support or care from society or anything else. They need the work that they can get from you. And in South Africa, you know, this is in land that was originally black land in Africa. You had millions of people that were enslaved by a minority of white people that showed up in their country. And they were ordered to do the most devastatingly difficult work of mining gold and minerals so far deep beneath the ground that they would be, there for days, weeks at a time, and just in the most horrendous conditions, just chipping away at rocks, getting all sorts of diseases, just to gain some of the mineral wealth that was under South Africa.
Yeah, mining in South Africa was South Africans' version of cotton picking, was it not?
Yeah, it was like diamonds and the gold bonanza, and they'd live under these horrific conditions in squalid camps near the mining sites. Peter Thiel's dad ran one of those very, very mines in South Africa, so you know where he got his inspiration from. And these guys were paid minimum wage and less than minimum wage. It was sort of like a South African version of minimum wage, basically nothing to survive. They were told that in order for them to move from any location to any location, they had to carry a passbook, and they could only get permission to travel to certain locations in their country if they had this passbook with them. And if they didn't, they'd be thrown into jails, and all sorts of disappearances would happen, and crackdowns would happen.
How is this any different?
It's not. It's the same thing. And we're creating that same environment. And the thing is, it's not only the very rich Americans who might be thinking, oh, well, let's just do this because what the hell, we get rich, we can do this. But it's also the middle class Americans that are sort of turning away and not paying attention to this. Everyone's got to be paying attention, because you know what really happens in this very morally decaying system that they're introducing into America is your soul begins to decay. Because you see
you have to physically and emotionally and mentally separate yourself from the terror that you see every time you open your fucking front door.
Everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's not, you might think that you're imprisoning the black people that are down in the mines and are coming up and doing all the work and giving you all the wealth and all the luxury that you're living in. But the people who are actually in prisons are you. You're the white, rich, or middle class South Africans then, or Americans now, who are now so terrified of the pain they've caused on everybody else and the trauma they've caused on everybody else, that they have to put themselves behind big white walls and barbed wire fences and lock themselves in prison.
They need an ICE police force to go around to kick your ass for them.
Yes.
That's what this is.
And the amazing thing for me every time I went into a township in South Africa was how happy people in the townships were, because they knew that they didn't have any of the moral corruption that existed inside the white class. And they knew that they were living their lives freely and openly and without any of the guilt associated with what's going on. And this is what I appeal to white Americans to realize it's happening right now. You can think if you're just going to ignore this, pretend that you can ignore politics, oh, that Trump administration is just going to do what it does, but you know what's going on. And you know that at the end of the day, it's your soul that's decaying and your morality that's decaying, and everything that you've told your kids that they should be, you're becoming the exact opposite. You're becoming
the interesting. Sorry,
racist.
go ahead.
Yeah, and so there's a sort of an ironic thing that happens with things like apartheid. It's about to infect all middle class Americans who are going to pretend that it's not happening, even though no, it's happening. But because it doesn't hurt them directly, they think it's not going to hurt them, but it does. It does at the end.
there's a disease that exists when society goes through upheaval like we're seeing in the United States, and it's the disease of apathy. And the second that you give into that apathy, you give away your agency. You give away your ability to create change for yourself. I understand that a lot of Americans are looking inward and trying to figure out a way to insulate themselves from the hate, the destruction, the anger, the death, the kidnapping, the suspension of rights, the crying legal migrants who are watching their relatives and daughters and dads and brothers and sisters and uncles and cousins and aunts get pulled from the dinner table, thrown into ICE vans, and sent away forever to who knows where. That and I can only tell you the truth of the matter is that apathy means you're not prepared for when it comes for you. You will give your agency away by turning away. I watch mainstream media do this every fucking day. I watch them report on Donald Trump like he's a legitimate human being. I watch them sane wash his shit every day because they try to protect themselves. When people like you, me, Lev, Michael Cohen, Aaron Parnas, Midas Project, good people who understand that a functional society depends on the humanity of democracy. And so they stick their necks out every day. We do this every day. And we're not heroes. We're just buoyed by the fact we're not them. And we're not going to give our agency away. That's why it's so important for everybody to share content like this. That's why it's important to hit that little square with the arrow on it and share it with your friends. That's why it's important to give subscriptions to maggots and people that you have in your life so that you can share this information because they don't know that this is happening. Mainstream media is not talking about these things. They're talking about Alligator Alcatraz like it's a great place. Like the fucking Fox News did a tour of it the other day. They're like, hey, look at these sweet bathrooms we got. And the showers are over there.
Merch.
Yeah, there's merch. There's alligator. Like this is a concentration camp that has merch that a lot of people are going, yeah, I want one of those fucking hats. Yeah. That's America now. My friends, that's America now. And to be able to pierce that bubble of hatred, that bubble of genocide, you have to share the kind of content that we're not getting from mainstream media. Stuff like this. You got to send this to people. Don't just give subscriptions, send people this stuff. There's a reason why I don't paywall any of the things here. The reason why I don't paywall any of the things here, it's because I want people to have the information. Sure, paid subs, they get access to different things. But more importantly, it doesn't matter if you subscribe. What matters is that you share things with other people where you can count on this truth. Because you're not getting this truth anywhere else about what is actually happening. Like, I can't tell you how many times on the inside of these chat sections, even just today, talking about Mr. Wise, who was a J6 FBI retired agent, who was supposed to go to jail for really helping incite the riot, threatening to kill, encouraging people to kill police officers, being named the senior advisor on the Trump team that's going to target political enemies, anybody they don't like. And they're saying, oh my God, I had no idea. That's the first I've heard of it. That's because these stories are getting choked out. If they get reported, they get choked out on social media. And if they do get reported, sometimes they disappear. So please subscribe to people like us. Please subscribe to other truth tellers and please share these stories because there's no way the average American knows some of this stuff. And you have to, because that's the only time it changes. I watched a Kinzinger interview with this guy that started this organization called Leaving MAGA. And it was so eye-opening for me. I'm like, oh my God, these guys really, it was a cult. Like they did the only way that he got out of the cult, and this is what he said, it was like, I opened up my mind to other information. So please, it's never been more important to subscribe and join this team, join the resistance, and be able to take that resistance and gift it to other people that you know need this kind of information. It's never been more important to share it.
It is so important that we get this news out there. I also think, I can't wait for, and I can't believe this hasn't happened yet, that we haven't had a white American who's not under threat of being hauled away to ICE actually standing in the way of ICE coming up and picking up citizens or undocumented workers.
Their Mexican neighbor.
Yeah, the Mexican neighbor, and saying, hey, no, you don't get to go over here and do that to my neighbor.
Well, you've seen it in California. You've seen it quite a bit in California. Yeah.
Because this is, it's communities that are going to have to stand up for the people inside their communities and say, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're not letting you come in here to take away our people, and what the mayor of New York or the future mayor of New York is likely going to be the one. What he's saying is absolutely correct. We've got to stop this apartheid regime basically from happening to us in America, because the alternative is just destructive beyond belief. The number one story on the countdown today is a story the New York Times today published, a devastating bombshell of an article. Again, no one has picked up on this. All about Trump's finances. It details in great detail how much money Trump had before he became president and his current value as the president of the United States. Well, before he had maybe $52 million in the bank in 2018 in his worst position. But by the time he got to the election, he would have been bankrupted by all the judgments against him, $640 million worth of judgments that had been found against him, which of course all disappeared when he became president. But something else appeared when he became president. $7 billion in crypto and other assets suddenly appeared as in his asset column. Now, the thing is about crypto, which is so fascinating to me, is it's only worth that $7 billion. In other words, you can only really use it as US dollars or cash it out if crypto actually reaches the point where it becomes an acceptable, legitimate currency. And for that to happen, it needs all sorts of legislation to go through, which is happening right now in the U.S. Senate based on Trump's policy initiatives. So crypto is becoming legitimized.
And the dollar needs to be in the shitter. And today, news that it's at a 50-year low, ladies and gentlemen.
Down 10%. So you combine all these things, and you can see that Trump is being basically held hostage by the crypto industry. They've given him a mythical $7 billion. He's dreamed to be one of the big billionaires of America. They said, here's $7 billion, but you only get to realize it if you legitimize cryptocurrency and if you tank the U.S. economy. And that's what he's doing right now. So he knows he's going to go back to being worthless Don, the bankrupt for the 8th time, or he can become the billionaire that he wants, but he has to sacrifice the American economy. So that's all sort of hidden inside this New York Times article, which doesn't say it as explicitly as I've said it. I'm going to be posting a piece on Narrative this afternoon, which really explains all of that. But, what we're looking at here is a massive bribe. It's a bribery scheme. The president of the United States has one big plan in mind, and that is to make crypto succeed and the U.S. dollar to tank.
What?
And he'll get a $7 billion paycheck. I believe it or not. It's that guy named Donald Trump who got that bribe.
You don't say. You don't say everything that I want. You don't say that Donald Trump is worth $7 billion if crypto is legitimized as a national currency. You don't say that the dollar has to tank for that to happen. It's down 50% as of today. 50%. Or sorry, it's a 50-year low today, down 10%. You don't say that there's a $7 billion nest egg waiting for him if he accomplishes this, destroys the economy, and destroys your 401ks along with everything you've worked for, as long as he gets $7.1 billion. You don't say he'll burn down the entire U.S. economy for $7 billion just for himself at the age of 79. You don't say.
I say it. And it's
the New York Times article is from today, by the way.
Yeah, that doesn't say what I just said, by the way.
But go to narrative.org. I believe you've got 50% off subscriptions this month as well. It's a Canada Week sale. I'm doing the same thing, so never a better time. You get half price access, pure access for life.
July 4th.
But nobody does. I'm doing it till the end of September, just so you know.
Okay.
Sorry, the end of this week. But nobody does a better job of putting the dots together where it comes to Trump's financial crypto bribery scheme. And what Zev is suggesting is he will give extra reporting because he's been covering this for 10 fucking years. So make sure you go and subscribe to Zev's Narrative, narrative.org. Get your annual subscription, 50% off, only till July 4th. I'm till the 7th because I'm way nicer. Make sure.
No. Just to be accurate, it's July 4th sale, but it goes till July 7th for both of us.
Oh, well, never mind. I apologize for sewering you right there.
Yeah. No, it's okay. But you're nicer. For sure, you're nicer. I have no doubt about it. I have no doubt you're the nicer guy here. That is the countdown today. So much of the show's really amazing content is found on deanblundell.substack.com, so go check it out. You'll find we didn't talk about Musk and Trump, which is also all about crypto, but...
Well, that fight lasted like 24 hours.
Yeah, we'll do that tomorrow, I guess, or whenever the next one shows
up.
It's
about crypto and EV subsidies and the big beautiful bill, and Elon threatened to deport Elon, and then Elon's like, go ahead, fuck you, and then threatened to take away his subsidies, and then Elon's like, okay, I'll just take a break for now.
That was that one. And we did talk about Paramount's ridiculous decision to pay Donald Trump $16 million for his ridiculous lawsuit, but now they can go ahead and sell their entire network to basically Bibi Netanyahu's friends, the Oracle guys. But that's all happening. So that's other news stories we didn't cover. But thank you for being here. Subscribe to Dean's Substack. Subscribe to narrative.org, NARATIV.org. I will be back in just 8 minutes with the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Tomorrow, the Fivecast is back at 3 p.m., and we shall see you then. Thank you for being here. Have a good day.